Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. You guys gave us some really interesting stuff to dig into this time. A Divaldo Franco YouTube video transcript and this article from Invisibillis, both on karma and reincarnation.
Yeah, I was fascinated by how both sources present karma. Not so much as this mystical thing, but as like a universal law, this cause and effect thing that governs, well, pretty much everything.
Okay, so like a cosmic version of what goes around comes around. But Franco in that video, he uses this phrase, everything that has an effect comes from an equivalent cause. And that seems to point to something really precise, like a perfect balance.
Right. And that's where reincarnation comes in. That Invisibilis article, it calls karma this cosmic accounting system playing out across multiple lifetimes. So basically what you do in this life, it can have consequences that might not show up, well, until a future life. No one escapes.
Whoa, okay. So then how does that explain things like people being born with disabilities or, people who face just incredible hardship from the moment they're born? Is that all because of karma from past lives?
Franco actually talks about this. He's really clear that it's not about punishment, but about opportunities for growth. It's more like those situations are, well, they're like lessons, tailor-made for the soul, if that makes sense.
So like a cosmic curriculum, not a cosmic punishment. What kind of learning are we talking about here?
The Invisibilis article, it links it to this idea of spiritual progress and refining your character. Like, think about it. What makes someone a genuinely good person? Compassion, wisdom, being strong when things are tough. Those are things you often learn through going through difficult stuff.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that puts a whole new spin on things. It's not about memorizing facts, but actually developing, like, the core of who you are. But if every action has a consequence, does that mean we're, like, stuck,
Yeah.
trapped by our past mistakes forever?
Not necessarily. And this is where Franco gets really interesting. He says, and I'm quoting here, we could go through the great transition without the need for suffering if we loved. Whoa, right.
Hold on, he's suggesting that love can actually neutralize negative karma? Okay, now I have to hear more about that.
Yeah.
What do these sources say about how that works? Is it like love just magically makes bad stuff go away or like it attracts good things? Or is it something else?
They both seem to suggest that love and forgiveness can actually lessen the impact of negative karma. It's not about erasing what you did, but more about changing your inner state. Like you're basically shifting to a more positive frequency, a more loving frequency, and that influences the kinds of things you experience.
Yeah, that makes me think about how when you hold on to anger or resentment, it feels so heavy, so draining. But when you can actually forgive, it's like this weight lifts, like you're
Yes.
free from that past stuff.
Exactly. And that Invisibilis article, it's all about personal transformation through self-reflection and forgiveness. You can't change what happened, but you can change how you relate to it.
Franco doesn't just stop at personal stuff, though, right? He also talks about this big transition the Earth is going through.
All
And
right.
he hints at some potentially rough times ahead. He even mentions more suffering and calamities. That's a little unsettling, to be honest.
Yeah, it is. And this is where understanding karma becomes really real, like relevant to what's going on in the world right now. Franco seems to be saying that as the Earth's energy changes, it makes the effects of karma stronger, both for individuals and for everyone as a whole.
Wait, hold on. He's talking about collective karma. Like
Yeah.
all of humanity has karma.
That's what it sounds like, right? Remember how we were talking about love counteracting negative karma? Well, if you think about it on a global level, if humanity as a whole is putting out a lot of fear, conflict, negativity, well, it makes sense that could manifest in challenges for everyone.
Okay, so all the more reason to work on ourselves and try to put out more love and compassion, right? But what is this Earth transition thing? What are the specific challenges Franco is talking about? He mentions calamities, but he's kind of vague on the details.
Yeah, he's a little cryptic. But the overall message seems to be that we're going into this period of heightened intensity, like a cosmic crucible where the consequences of our actions, both individual and collective, they're going to be amplified.
Okay, now that's a powerful image. Like we're all being called to really step up our
Yeah.
spiritual game, right? But Franco's also worried about something else going on right now. This obsession with material things. He even goes so far as to call materialism the supreme regulator of the moral destinies of humanity, which is a pretty huge statement.
It is. But what's so interesting is how he links it back to karma. He's saying that when we're too attached to stuff, it creates these karmic entanglements. You get stuck in this cycle of desire and suffering, always chasing the next shiny new thing and forgetting about inner growth, forgetting about connecting to something bigger.
So it's not that having nice things is inherently bad, but it's about finding the balance, right? Not letting those things become the most important thing in your life.
Exactly. And that Invisibillis article, it echoes that. It talks about the importance of balancing the material and the spiritual. Yeah, material things are part of life, but real fulfillment, that comes from spiritual growth and aligning with your higher purpose.
This whole thing about karma playing out across lifetimes,
Mhm.
it raises a really big question for me. If the choices we're making today are basically setting the stage for our future lives, how do we even begin to make choices that lead to good stuff,
Yeah.
to more positive and fulfilling experiences down the line?
Ah, that's a great question, and it's something both sources touch on. Franco talks about living in alignment with spiritual principles, while Invisibilis highlights the importance of choosing love, compassion, understanding. In every single moment, they're both pointing to a way of life that's not about getting more stuff, but about cultivating inner richness.
It's like they're saying, hey, pay attention.
Hmm.
You're not just creating your reality for this life, but you're setting the stage for lifetimes to come. That's a lot to think about.
It is. It reminds us that we're not just passengers, you know? We have the power to choose, to learn, to evolve.
So we're not just at the mercy of fate, but we actually have a hand in shaping our destiny, both of this life and for the ones that come after.
Exactly. And that's pretty amazing, right? It means every choice you make, every thought, every action, it's a chance to move towards a better future.
This is starting to feel less like a deep dive into karma and reincarnation and more like a masterclass in conscious living.
I love that. Because honestly, that's exactly what it is. Understanding karma isn't just about knowing stuff. It's about using that knowledge to live a life that has meaning, a life that feels fulfilling.
But what about those more specific challenges Franco talked about, the potential calamities and all the upheaval with this Earth transition? How do we deal with that?
That's where things get even more interesting. Franco doesn't give us like concrete answers, but he talks about the importance of being spiritually ready. He suggests that the more we develop inner strength, resilience, and compassion, the better we'll be able to handle whatever comes our way.
So it's not just about prepping for potential disasters,
Yeah.
but getting ready on a deeper level, spiritually and emotionally.
Yes. It's about finding that inner peace, that stability that can ground you when everything around you feels chaotic.
That brings us to something Franco mentions almost casually, the psychosphere.
Hmm.
I got to be honest, I'm not totally sure what he means by that.
Oh, it's fascinating. He's talking about this layer of energy that surrounds the earth, and it's influenced by all of our collective thoughts and emotions. Basically, it's like the collective consciousness of humanity.
So like a giant energetic field that we're all feeding into, does that tie back into the whole collective karma idea?
Absolutely. Think of it like a mirror. The psychosphere is reflecting back to us the energy we're putting out there. If it's fear, anger, division,
Mm-hmm.
well, that's what we're going to experience collectively. But if it's love, compassion, and unity, that's the reality that we can create.
Whoa, okay. So we're not just connected physically, but like energetically as well.
Hmm.
And what we do individually, it's affecting the state of the whole world.
Exactly. It's a huge responsibility, but also an incredible opportunity. Think about it. If enough of us can raise our consciousness, if we choose love over fear, we can actually change the direction of humanity. That makes me wonder, how do we actually do that? How do we shift from a mindset of me to a mindset of we? How do we start living this understanding of karma and interconnectedness like in our daily lives?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's about making choices, moment by moment, that reflect your values, your aspirations.
Choices that are, aligned with love, compassion, understanding.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be these big, grand gestures. It can be choosing to be kind instead of judgmental, offering to help someone, forgiving someone who's wronged you.
It's about weaving those principles into the fabric of your life every single day.
Exactly. And as you do that, you're not just contributing to a better world out there, you're creating a better life for yourself, too.
This is starting to feel a lot less like a philosophy and more like a guidebook for living a good life.
I like that because that's really what understanding karma is all about. It's about realizing you're not just a victim of circumstance, but you have the power to create your own destiny. It's about stepping into that power and choosing to live in a way that lifts everyone up, not just yourself, but the whole world.
Beautifully said. And with that, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
We have. But before we move on, let's just take a minute to digest everything we've talked about. What are some of the key takeaways that are sticking with you?
For me, it's realizing that Karma isn't about being punished, but about growth. It's a system that makes sure every action has a consequence, but those consequences they're ultimately there to guide us towards becoming the best versions of ourselves.
And that whole idea that love can actually soften the blow of negative karma,
Mm.
that's incredibly powerful. It reminds us that we're not trapped by our past mistakes. We can create a better future.
That's a great point. And it reminds us that we have a choice every single moment. We can choose to keep those negative cycles going, or we can break free and create something new.
So it's not just about understanding how karma works, but about using that understanding to make better choices, more compassionate choices.
Exactly. And it's about remembering that we're all in this together. What we do individually affects the whole of humanity.
That's a big thought. It's a call to action, isn't it? A call to step into our power as conscious creators and work towards a better world.
Beautifully said. And with that, I think we've reached a good stopping point for now.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've laid a lot of groundwork here. We explored the basics of karma and reincarnation, talked about how it all applies to our lives right now, and even touched on the challenges and opportunities of this Earth transition thing. And of course, the whole idea of balancing our material desires with our spiritual aspirations.
A great summary. We've definitely set the stage for what's to come.
I'm so excited to dive even deeper in the next part. But for now, let's give everyone a chance to let all this sink in.
Yes. Take some time to think about what resonated with you most from this first part. What new insights have you gained? How can you start applying these ideas in your own life?
We'll be back soon to continue exploring karma and reincarnation.
Yeah.
Until then, keep those wheels turning.
Welcome back. It's pretty amazing to think about how we can actually put these concepts into practice.
Right. We've talked about all this big picture stuff. Karma is a cosmic system, the Earth transitioning.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about how this shows up in our regular lives. Like, how does karma actually play out day to day?
I think it's in those little things, the choices we make every day, how we treat other people, even our thoughts and attitudes. Remember, every single action has a ripple effect. You're shaping the energy you put out there, and that shapes the experiences that come back to you.
So even if I don't see instant karma, like I'm rude to someone and nothing bad happens right away, it's still affecting the bigger picture.
Exactly. It's like imagine weaving a tapestry. Every thought, every word, every action, it's like a thread,
Yeah.
right? And they all come together to create the pattern of your life.
That makes sense. Something Franco said in that YouTube video really stuck with me. He talked about people who've done harm being like, and I'm quoting here, prisoners incarcerated to be able to atone for the evils they have practiced. That's pretty intense. Is he saying that, like, every difficult situation is a direct result of bad karma?
It is a strong image, for sure. And it ties into this idea that sometimes tough experiences can be a way of balancing things out, karmically speaking. But it's important to remember that both sources really emphasize that it's not about punishment, it's about growth. It's about learning.
So even people who've made mistakes, they're being given a chance to learn and become better.
Exactly. It's like we're all in this giant cosmic school, and life keeps throwing us these lessons, these perfectly tailored lessons. Sometimes they're hard lessons, but they're all designed to help us, to help us evolve.
Speaking of learning, that Invisibillis article talks a lot about cultivating wisdom. What does that even look like practically? Is it just about reading a ton of books?
The article seems to suggest that real wisdom comes from a few things: self-reflection, looking inward, learning from wise sources like the teachings of Jesus, for example, but maybe even more importantly, paying attention to the feedback life gives you. It's about becoming more aware of your patterns, your reactions, the consequences of your choices.
So it's a mix of, like, inner work, studying, and real-life experience, not just one or the other.
Exactly. It's about blending knowledge with experience and then using that wisdom to navigate life, all the complexities that come with being human. And remember, wisdom isn't like a finish line you cross. It's a journey, a
Right.
lifelong process.
That's so true. It's easy to think you've got it figured out, but there's always more to learn.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what makes it so exciting. The universe is constantly offering us these opportunities to grow, to expand, to become more.
Okay, let's go back to that whole Earth transition thing for a minute. Franco paints this pretty intense picture of what could be coming. He talks about suffering, calamities, all this stuff. It can sound kind of doom and gloom, to be honest. What's the message here? Are we just supposed to brace ourselves for the worst?
I don't think it's about predicting doom. I think it's more like a nudge to prepare ourselves, spiritually speaking. Remember, he links those potential challenges to the karmic energies that are really amped up during this transition. So if we can raise our consciousness both individually and collectively, focus on love, compassion, understanding it, it stands to reason that maybe we can lessen some of those harsher impacts.
That's kind of empowering, right? It's not just sitting around waiting for things to happen, but actually taking part in creating the future we want.
Exactly. It highlights the fact that we have a choice. We're not just along for the ride, we're co-creating this.
And that goes back to that idea of the psychosphere we were talking about earlier. If we're all connected energetically, then the choices we're making both individually and as a group are feeding into that shared energy field.
Precisely. Think of it like this. That psychosphere is like a giant mirror reflecting back to us the energy we're putting out. If it's fear, anger, separation, well, that's what we'll experience collectively. But if it's love, compassion, unity, that's the reality we can manifest.
So it's not just individual karma we're dealing with, but the karma of all of humanity. Our actions are all intertwined, and we're all shaping the fate of the planet together.
That's a powerful realization, right? It shifts your perspective from me to we. You start to see that we're all in this together.
So then how do we deal with this collective karma as individuals? That can feel really overwhelming to think about the state of the world and all the problems we're facing.
It absolutely can feel overwhelming. But that's where understanding karma becomes so important. Instead of feeling powerless, we can actually choose to be agents of positive change.
By making conscious choices in our own lives and basically radiating that positive energy outward.
Exactly. It starts with us. Every act of kindness, every moment of compassion, every decision that's rooted in love. It's a step towards creating a more harmonious, more peaceful world.
So it's not about waiting for someone else to fix things, but taking responsibility for our own energy and our own impact.
Precisely. It's about realizing that we're not just, drops in the ocean. We are the ocean.
Wow, that's a beautiful way to put it. It makes me think of something that Invisibillis article talked about, indulgence. Giving without expecting anything back. It's like a way to practice positive karma in everyday life.
That's a great point. It's about shifting from this scarcity mindset to one of abundance. When you give freely, you open yourself up to receiving more abundance. Not just material things, but also spiritual and emotional abundance.
So it's like we're creating this positive feedback loop. The more love you give, the more love you receive.
Exactly. And that love, it ripples outward. It touches other people's lives and helps create a more compassionate, harmonious world.
So it's not about doing good things just to get good karma. It's about cultivating that genuine generosity, that compassion.
Absolutely. It's about aligning your actions with your highest values and remembering that interconnectedness we were talking about.
Hearing all of this, it makes me think about the legacy we leave behind. If karma really does carry over from one life to the next, then the choices we're making today, they're not just affecting this life, but they're shaping the conditions for future lives. Not just for ourselves, but for others too.
That's a profound realization, isn't it? It asks us to consider those ripple effects of our actions, not just in this moment, but across time and space.
So how can we make choices that create a positive ripple effect? Not just for ourselves, but for generations to come.
That's a great question to think about as we head into the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we're talking about building legacies here, not just living for today. That's a pretty big concept to wrap your head around.
Yeah, it is. But both sources, they actually give us some clues on how to approach this whole legacy thing. Franco talks about making sure your actions line up with spiritual principles. And the Invisibillis article, well, they highlight love, compassion, and understanding. Those are like guiding principles for your choices. It's about doing things that lift people up, that help heal, that contribute to something bigger than yourself.
So it's not just about avoiding bad karma, but actively trying to create good karma, almost like you're investing in a positive future for yourself and for everyone else.
That's a great way to think about it. It's like you're planting these seeds of kindness, compassion, wisdom, and those seeds, well, they'll keep blossoming in lifetimes to come. And who knows, maybe they'll inspire other people to do the same, and it'll create this ripple effect of positive change that keeps going,
Yeah.
way beyond our own lives.
That's a beautiful thought. But it also makes me think about how tough things are right now. All the
Yeah.
conflict, the division, the uncertainty. It can be hard to stay focused on that positive vision, you know?
It absolutely can. And that's where understanding karma, well, it becomes even more important, I think. Remember, it's not about ignoring the hard stuff or being naive. It's about realizing that even when things feel chaotic, you still have that choice. You can choose love, choose compassion, choose actions that are in line with your highest self.
So it's like being a light in the darkness.
Yeah, exactly. And you never know, maybe your small acts of kindness or those moments when you choose understanding or when you stand up for what's right, maybe that will spark something in someone else.
Like that saying, be the change you want to see in the world, but with a karmic twist.
I love that because that's what it's all about, isn't it? We're not just watching the world go by, we're actively shaping it.
And it's not about waiting for some big, huge opportunity to make a difference. It's about all those everyday choices.
Yeah.
How you treat the people you love, how you interact with strangers, how you react when things get tough, even how you talk to yourself. It all matters.
It all adds to the energy you're putting out there. And that energy, well, has an impact. It influences your life and everyone else's.
You know, something Franco said about materialism really got me thinking. He was worried about it overshadowing spiritual growth. He even called it the supreme regulator of the moral destinies of humanity.
Uh,
That's a pretty strong statement.
Yeah, it is. And it goes right back to that idea of karmic entanglement. When you get too attached to things, to possessions, you create this whole web of desires and attachments. And that can trap you in this cycle of suffering, you know? You're always chasing the next thing, the next shiny object, and you forget about growing on the inside. You lose that connection to something bigger.
So it's not about getting rid of all your stuff, but being aware of your attachment to it, making
Right.
sure those desires don't control your choices or get in the way of, your spiritual goals.
Exactly. That Invisibillis article, it also talks about this. Finding that balance between the material world and the spiritual world. Material things can be nice. They can provide comfort and security, but they don't bring lasting happiness, real fulfillment. That comes from finding your purpose, from living a life of service to something greater than yourself.
So it's about enjoying what you have without letting it take over, like appreciating abundance without clinging to it.
That's a perfect way to put it. True wealth isn't about what you own. It's about who you are, how you live. It's about those inner qualities, compassion, wisdom, integrity, love. Those are the treasures that last, that carry over from one lifetime to the next.
This is really starting to feel less like a deep dive into karma and reincarnation and more like a blueprint for living a good life.
I like that because in a way, that's what understanding karma is all about, isn't it? It's about realizing you're not just a victim of circumstance, you're a creator. You have the power to shape your own destiny.
It's about making choices that reflect your values, your highest aspirations, and living in a way that benefits everyone, not just yourself.
Beautifully said. Every moment, every choice, every interaction, it's an opportunity to create something good for yourself and for the world.
So we're not just talking about some abstract philosophy here. This is about real life.
Absolutely. It's about realizing that we're all connected and our choices, well, they have far-reaching consequences, not just for us, but for everyone.
It's a call to step up, isn't it? To become conscious creators and build a world that's, a world that's better than the one we inherited.
It really is. And it starts with each of us taking responsibility for our own energy, our own thoughts, our own actions. Remember, even the smallest act of kindness can make a difference.
So it's not about being perfect, but about making progress. It's about aligning yourself with what you believe in, with what you value, and making choices that contribute to something good, something bigger.
And never forget, even when things are tough, there's always hope. There's always the chance to choose love, to choose growth, to create a world that's full of compassion and beauty.
This has been such an amazing exploration, and I feel like we've just scratched the surface of these ideas.
I agree. There's so much more to learn and discover, but I hope this deep dive has given everyone some food for thought, some inspiration.
I hope so too. And thanks for joining me on this journey into karma and reincarnation.
It's been a pleasure.
And to everyone listening, keep exploring, keep learning, keep growing, and most importantly, keep choosing love. We'll see you next time.